All right, y'all, welcome back to Tulsa. This is going to be a fun little video all about the crazy questions that I get asked about Oklahoma. I plan to record like 4 videos today and I'm already getting tired, so we'll see. This is video number 2. We're gonna do the best. I'm gonna do the best I can with what I got, like Mariah, and we're gonna do the best we can with this light coming in the way that it is. I wonder if I open the other blind, will it hit me fully? Then I'm gonna be like blinded. I just raised it up a little, like closer to my neck. Y'all, we are not struggling today. Without struggle, there is no progress. Who said that? No justice, no peace. We're gonna keep on rolling. I don't have time for this. It's 3:20. I'm gonna finish this video by 3:40. Watch me. I have officially been in Tulsa for 6 months. Most recently, literally like 2 weeks ago, I was on vacation and I met this lady and she's like, wow, Oklahoma, there's like nothing there, right? It's like a wasteland. And to put it in context, she knew of someone, it was like a family friend or a cousin or something like that, who had looked into a remote work program in another state. So it's literally her second time. I think it might have been Indiana. So literally it's like her second time hearing about something like this. And her past experience was with a very different city. Whether it was her nephew or this person she knew who had considered the program, who had considered a similar program in a different city, he described it as like a city that time forgot or a city that fell off like in the industrial age, basically. Like, let me look up this city actually. And I'm sorry to this city, no offense. You know, Tulsa catches strays all the time. Like I was watching, there's this show called, I think it's No Good Deed or something on Netflix. And the character, this guy, I'll put him on the screen because it was so crazy. I'm like, he's just randomly from Oklahoma and they crash on Oklahoma. They clown Oklahoma so much. Like there's just multiple jokes. Like I feel like he has very few scenes, but like almost every time there's some kind of joke about Oklahoma that's being made. And he even talks about, he's like, I'm from some town in Oklahoma and our mayor was a gopher or something like that. And people really voted and elected him. So my goodness, shoot, I'm from Delaware. Delaware always catches strays too. So I guess I moved from, you know, one underdog city to another. Because I feel like I looked at this city as well when I was researching remote work programs. Not so much that I considered doing this program, is that I was just kind of comparing. I was just looking at like Tulsa Remote and what they offered compared to what others offered, you know. Okay, there was Southern Indiana. What city in Indiana? Evansville. That sounds about right. Evansville is located near the borders of Indiana, Kentucky, and Illinois, making it a regional hub. Is it Evansville? And then they also have New Haven, Indiana. There's a couple, but I think Evansville rings a bell. So point being, there's this assumption that cities that have remote work programs that are paying people to move there are literally crumbling to the ground, that there is no infrastructure, and they're just filled with these derelict, decrepit buildings and minimal infrastructure. Some cities that are really, really struggling and they're trying to bring in anyone with a pulse and a job to bring some tax dollars into their city. But Tulsa is not one of those cities. I know that Tulsa has its challenges. Someone commented on my week 1 video and then a couple hours later, they commented on my very last upload. And so that made me think that they probably watched or binge watched quite a few of my episodes, and they're like, your tone has really changed since you've been here in just a really short time. And I think it has. And it's come to a point where, man, I wouldn't say that I defend Tulsa tooth and nail, but I find myself more often defending Tulsa or just trying to explain and educate people, you know, just based on my limited experience, right, and what I've learned in my 6 months here. And I do feel like I did make a conscientious effort to learn more about the city, to educate myself, right, and to be open-minded to it, even though some viewers, some commenters have their own views about that, of how open they think I should be to Tulsa or whatever. Definitely explained to her, like, no, Tulsa is definitely a city. I felt like Tulsa had more going for it than a lot of cities that offer remote work programs. And I was definitely looking for that sort of adventure or that next stage of my journey of just trying out something like this, right? But I wanted to make, of course, like anyone would, you want to make the best decision and possibly not do this after all if it's not really in your best interest. And while I think that the perception may be that only failing cities are doing things like this, Tulsa is actually a populated city. Surprise, surprise. Now, we did talk about Tulsa and Oklahoma's shortcomings, like rating lowest in healthcare and education and highest for obesity and STDs and some of the drug statistics. But I just had to assure her that there are definitely thriving neighborhoods. There is wealth in Tulsa. There are hospitals here. You know, that's one of the things like people think are, you know, it's like this rural space and there's no hospitals and facilities and shopping, businesses and things like that. You know, yes, there's definitely shopping, even though it's mainly dispensaries here in Oklahoma. So over the past 6 months, I've gotten a ton of questions about what life is really like here. A lot of things have made me laugh, but I have to admit some of these things actually crossed my mind before moving here. One of the things that came up, this was like my 2nd month here. I was talking to a friend of mine and I was like, oh, I'm just getting ready to go to the gym. I'm about to go work out. And he's like, oh, I bet they play country music at the gym, right? And I was so irritated. I have never heard any country at the gym. Like legitimately, I went to the gym today and it's my favorite class that I talked about. My favorite instructor across the board of like all of the fitness centers and gyms that I have tried out in Tulsa. This is my favorite class, my favorite instructor, and she plays the most ignorant hip hop. Okay. Party songs, strip club songs, mixtape songs. I love it. Everyone in the class loves it, which lets me know that she's not this like anomaly in Tulsa. And I can't lie though, I definitely wondered about this at first. Like when I started using the Tulsa Remote Health and Wellness benefit and I decided to use it to like check out gyms and fitness studios around here, I was so relieved to get to that class and hear all the F-bombs getting dropped by the instructor, a little bit of underground hardcore rap thrown in for the playlist with a little Drake and Nicki for balance. There might be a Taylor Swift song. I zone out and I ride through that one. And that's not to say that those are the only options here in Tulsa. Like I know everyone doesn't want to go and hear raunchy music. I do. I do. I need that for motivation. But there is one place in Tulsa that actually has, not even one place, because at this point, I've seen several offered, but it's a gospel workout class. Yeah, either way, you get the whole spectrum in Tulsa. But no, it's not a line dancing, you know, hold down at the gyms. And before anyone gets on my case, I also mentioned this to my homegirl. I'm like, I was talking to so-and-so. I'm like, isn't he so stupid? Like he really made a comment about them playing country at the gym here. And she was like, well, I was kind of wondering the same thing. So I guess that makes 3 of us. I just wasn't, you know, I just didn't admit it. And I actually went out and experienced it first before jumping to that conclusion. So, you know, I would say if you're new to Tulsa or if you're considering it, man, just give it a chance. And I assure you, you'll probably be pleasantly surprised by a lot of aspects of culture. I don't know if that's necessarily culture, right? But yeah, the fact that you're not going to hear like Christian tunes in the gym or something. Oh, this is a good one. What about weed culture in Oklahoma? There's so much mystery or misinformation or lack of information about Oklahoma, but everyone seems to know Oklahoma has legal weed. So let's rewind a few months ago. This was back in November. I'm in a bar and I'm talking to a guy who happens to be from the DMV. So if you've been watching my videos, you know that I went to college in DC and lived in the DMV, like in PG County, in DC, and then later in PG County for just a little while after I graduated. So we were talking about our experiences in DC pre and post legalization. And one point that he made was like after DC got the legalized recreational, there was this rise of all of these really annoying career paths related to the industry, right? And you started seeing all of these really pretentious experts and expert potheads. We both observed that you don't really get this in Oklahoma, or I haven't experienced it in Oklahoma so far. Literally met a couple people who are like licensed growers or whatever, but I haven't met anyone who's like, oh, I'm like a pharmaceutical, I'm like a THC analytics investigator. I'm a cannabis advocacy and legitimization justice coordinator. And maybe in DC it's a little different too, because you get like the PACs and people like working in government and stuff like that. And also with all of the universities, like it spills over into academia, where there's all of these like weed related majors that people have and these really obscure jobs that they can get because of it. But and then you even run into like normal lay people, like, I don't know, they're just like, oh God, like I'm just wearing tie-dye and a freaking Bob Marley shirt, and let me tell you of like all of the freaking 500 components of what they do to the body and why I'm an advocate of it and I know everything about it. I think it's kind of annoying. I haven't seen any of those people, right? And then our conversation sort of went into the availability to purchase outside of the legal avenues, outside of dispensaries, right? And at one point it was so funny. He had approached someone and inquired about the availability of such resources. And the person reacted as if they were very much afraid and very much concerned. It was just an unusual type of reaction. And he's like, to me, he says, do I look like the feds? Do I look like the feds? I'm like, you don't look like the feds. It's okay. It's like, I don't understand. Like, WTF is going on in Oklahoma? And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of relatable for someone who isn't me. I can't relate to that at all, because I would never attempt to acquire substances. However, what was more so relatable was sort of the attitude or the reaction that people have. Oklahoma it's very conservative. Even with Tulsa being touted as like one of the more liberal cities, or possibly the most liberal city in Oklahoma, it is very conservative. People do not, in my experience, talk very openly. Oklahoma does not have recreational use, right? They have medical use, and each state varies in even how they handle like recreational versus medical from one state to the next. So yeah, it definitely does not seem open in that sense either, of like even so much like people talking about it. And I talked about like how that can get annoying, right? But just even, and I keep wanting to compare it to like Cali, right? Or DC or Jersey, like places that I know and I've experienced directly, where legalization has happened, and like how people seem to be a little bit more open, even in conversation about even talking about it or addressing it. And I don't expect people to walk out in the middle of the street and say like, I'm using cannabis, but I don't know. It's a thin line, I guess. But that particular individual was here for a week and hadn't gotten a card because he did not foresee having all of these obstacles. Personally, I definitely could not refer him to anyone who could help him directly at that time. However, I did share a viewer's comment about the ease at which someone could obtain a medical card here in Oklahoma, and that there were even offers on Groupon for such services. I can't speak to the authenticity of that because I have not obtained a license. But I am really glad that there is no hipster, hippie, annoying pothead culture in Tulsa, at least not that I have experienced so far. If it's here, you guys let me know. Where do you find it? Where do you find those people? Because they're entertaining, at least. It got me wondering about events like 420. Like, does that really happen here? Or is there any celebration of being full to the brim with dispensaries? For the patients, of course. So I'll look into that and I'll keep you guys posted and let you know if I find out about any sort of like organized celebration, but it doesn't seem to be happening that way. I get it that Oklahoma is medical, like they legalize medical use and not recreational use, but it definitely seems to be a situation where it's not like it's medical, but we're looking the other way type of situation. Like even in Houston and God, Texas is very much, again, another red state. And I'm sure they will never, come hell or high water, they will never legalize at all. And even there, there were like 420 events and things that I personally definitely did not go to because that's illegal. Okay, I think they get it. I think they get the picture that I was not involved, that you were not involved, Key. Anyway, and also I've heard some things about, it sounds like there's been attempts to kind of overturn or make it more difficult for people to get licenses and things like that. I mean, I don't know. It seems like everybody in Oklahoma who wanted a license should have one by now because there's a dispensary. Okay. Another question that I've gotten, and I also asked this question myself before moving here and when I got here, and I was scolded in video comments about this. There's no diversity in Tulsa. So specifically, I'm going to go back to my Hispanic coworker, my former coworker, who prior to me moving to Tulsa, and I talked about this in one of my videos as well. She talked to me about how her aunt was here and left. This is not someone that I talk to all the time, but we kind of had a quick catch up. And I was like, yeah, you know, Tulsa has been fine. There's actually a whole Hispanic side of town. So I think it's very far from the truth that there are no Hispanic people here. So I literally see diverse people everywhere and they don't seem to be oppressed. Now, I will say that this is a Texas girl. And then she did say, well, you know what? The situation with her aunt, it was like 10 years ago. And I'm like, wow, well, you tell me this now after you warned me about Tulsa and Oklahoma and had me scared to move here. But there were multiple people, like there was literally one person, and I know you watch my videos, hello, that said, oh my God, like when I said, oh, I got accepted into this program and it's in Tulsa, gave me this huge speech about how their in-laws, their former in-laws were from Oklahoma and those people were so crazy and this and that, crazy and racist and everything else, and just be very careful there and watch your back. And then turns around and was like, they weren't from Tulsa. I'm like, what? Literally, you guys, like 6 months, like the stuff that I came on YouTube and said, and I'm talking about you guys were gonna run me out of town with pitchforks. It's a wonder I didn't get run out with shotguns and pitchforks. And then some of my elite, you know, my trustworthy sources that I've known for years or known for extended periods of time, they're like, oh, sorry, you know, I think I did get that wrong. Or it was a whole other city. It wasn't even Tulsa, right? From that one person. And then someone else was like, oh, you know what? That was actually like a decade ago. I'm like, I feel like when we talked about it, you definitely said this was like within 3 to 4 years, you know what I mean? Like very recently. I say that to say there's just perceptions about Oklahoma. Like a couple minutes ago, we talked about even like on TV, I don't even, like the writers for that show, the writers for No Good Deed, I don't even know if any of them even have experience with Oklahoma, or if Oklahoma just feels like a good place to pick on, right? Like they're writing the script and they're like, what would be funny? Like, oh, let's just make fun of this guy. Let's keep saying he's from Oklahoma and keep making jokes about it. Or are these people from Oklahoma who are just giving it a bad name for fun? But yeah, you know, I was across the Gulf of America. That is that cracks me up, man. And I know a lot of y'all are conservatives and you're diehard fans of that orange man. I'll probably get some thumbs down for this, but come on now. But I was way across the Gulf of America in Cuba. And I even there, like one of our drivers, of course, when you're on vacation, people always ask you like, what state are you from? And especially in Cuba, because a lot of people have like family members in Texas or Florida or whatever. And I was like, I am not claiming Oklahoma. I'm like, first of all, I just got there. I'm barely a resident. I don't have any official documents saying that a deed, I guess, counts. But you know what I mean? Like, I don't have an Oklahoma driver's license and all that stuff yet. I'm like, I'm claiming Texas. People had relatives in Texas, definitely Florida, of course, and definitely New York, like all of the places that we know that have areas that have like big Latino and or Cuban population. So they immediately recognize that and they start saying like, oh, I have a sister in Miami, I have a sister in Brooklyn, in the Bronx, yada yada. I'm just saying I'm from Texas. And then for those of my family and friends that are from the East Coast. Now, you guys know once you leave pretty much that region, people only know, they know DC, they know Philly, they know New York. So for me, I'm like, okay, I've lived in DC. I damn near lived in Philly. I mean, I legitimately did, but that's another story for another day. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I would claim DC or Philly before anything because no one knows Delaware that far away. The organizer, she's like, well, Key, she's claiming Texas because she don't want to claim Oklahoma. The driver, he spins all the way around like Oklahoma. Don't be in Cuba clowning Oklahoma, bro. Don't start. See what I'm saying? Because once I've been somewhere long enough, you know what I mean? I got to defend that place. Like anytime if I'm talking to someone and they start comparing DC to Baltimore, you know, DC and Baltimore do not get along. This was like early 2000s that I moved from DC. I still, honey, do not, you see what I'm saying? You gotta, and that was actually in my notes here, you know, that people just love their city, people love their state, right? And somehow that translates into hating and shit talking on any other place, right? Sometimes it's based on nothing. And like in that Cuba example, you know, the guy gave me a little hard time, like this Cuban guy who never stepped foot off of Cuba, probably will remain there his whole life, you know, cracking a joke about Oklahoma, like a slight, like, Oklahoma, whoa, what is that? You live in Oklahoma? Like, man, I drive people from all over the globe and they don't come from Oklahoma, babe. You know, even being in Cuba itself and we were talking to people and it's like, oh, where are you from? Like if you meet someone from Havana, and like, oh, we visit Matanzas, you know, we were in Matanzas, we were in, what is that other? Oh my God. Oh, Veradero. We visited Veradero. We visited Matanzas. They're like, Veradero, like, ew, that's a little tourist town. Like, Veradero is corny. Like, Havana is the best. You know what I mean? So all over the world, we're subject to this. So anyone who is watching, you guys, take it all in stride if you're in Oklahoma and don't thumbs me down too quick. Now, I talked about y'all's little orange man and I talked about Tulsa. You're getting mad at me. Don't do that. Ooh, another question or comment that I get about Oklahoma. Wow, they don't even have a sports team. This usually comes from guys, right? Not too many women care about something like that. And so Tulsa does have some sports teams, right? You have the Tulsa. Ooh, are they Oilers or Drillers or something? Hold on. Tulsa sports teams. Yeah, we have the Tulsa Drillers. So we have a minor league baseball team that plays at 1 OK Field. And it says they are a double A affiliate of the LA Dodgers, whatever that means. We have a professional soccer team. We have a minor league hockey team. So they're minor league. Okay, we got the Tulsa Shock, a former WNBA team. Okay, I think that's enough. We get the picture, right? A few weeks ago, I heard about a conspiracy. I was talking to someone and he's like, tell me something. He's like, I've been watching your videos. I said, okay. Now, sometimes it's a little scary in person when somebody's like, I've been watching your videos. I'm like, what do I do now? Something that you need to know. I'm like, oh Lord, here we go. Get the strap. He's like, what sounds, say this. Tulsa Thunder. I'm like, Tulsa Thunder? Like, what is a SWAT team about to run in here? What is going on? I don't know. He's just being very cryptic. I'm like, what the heck are you even talking about, dude? And how does this connect to my videos? He's like, I'm going to tell you. I'm like, okay. And he's like, what's the name of the basketball team in OKC? And I'm like, OKC Thunder. He's like, that doesn't even sound right, does it? It doesn't even sound right. You know why? Because it was supposed to be the Tulsa Thunder. And there was something happened and he had this whole, and then he started this, like, giving me a speech about how that OKC Thunder was supposed to be the Tulsa Thunder and it was going to bring like all of this money and revenue into the city. And at the last minute, someone swindled or did something and the Thunder ended up going to OKC instead of Tulsa. And also that is why the stadium that is downtown was built to house them and all of that. And it was just like one more assault against Tulsa. And his point was, when he brought it home eventually, right, is that, okay, I've complained about different things in Tulsa, one of them being like nightlife and things like that. And he's like, just imagine that made OKC, if not put them on the map, made them bigger than ever. And I actually saw something recently in the news about there's this big, there's an OKC and there's a new arena project worth $900 million. The same architect behind the Golden State Warriors and the Raiders Stadium. So yeah, it's huge. And he's like, you know, it would have just been amazing for Tulsa. And he also said it kind of got swept under the rug. And you know what? Because I like to look things up, but I don't know how. I mean, Tulsa Thunder. Yeah, because there's Tulsa King, Tulsa professional sports team. I don't know. Like, what would that be? Like, the Thunder was stolen from Tulsa or something? The Thunder team was stolen from Tulsa. There's nothing about it. I don't know how accurate this was. I mean, that guy seemed pretty trustworthy. Like, he had a whole explanation too of like why it would have been the Tulsa Thunder. I can't find anything about it. I mean, in just a quick, like a couple minutes search on the internet, I'm not really sure how true that is. I cannot attach any veracity to that gentleman's claim. However, he was very passionate about it. He was very assured. If anyone can contribute, direct me into more information about it, I would love to know. Do you guys know about this? So another question I got was about fashion, Native people, and cowboys is what I wrote in my note, kind of lumping that all together. So somehow with Tulsa, I feel like we kind of associate it with the Wild West. I know I definitely do. And then we know about like the Native tribes being relocated here and the Trail of Tears and other, some unfortunate things like that occurred. I think once again, like a lot of what's in the media, specifically, definitely in this example, leads people to think or have a certain expectation that people are walking around a certain way. Someone I know who's actually from Texas, from the Houston area, who also watches my videos. Hey, how you doing? If you're watching, what's good? But he kept asking me if I was seeing any Native people here. And he's like, why don't you show them? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I literally went to the Indigenous Peoples Day parade and I posted a video about it. And then there's also just like random videos I've done. Like, I'm sure, I know for a fact, like there's been, there has to have been Native people in them. So we continue talking and he's like, yeah. He's like, I watched your video at the parade, but I only saw like 1 or 2 Native people. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I was getting confused. I'm like, what are you talking about? So as the conversation went on, he has been watching Tulsa King. He's talking about something. I'm pretty sure it was on TV. And I know myself, I didn't watch too much of Tulsa King, just very much a very little bit of it. But you guys, like, based on that show, this person was having an expectation. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, do you legitimately think in 2025 that Native people are walking around with like moccasins and headdresses, just, I don't know, walking around in the mall that way? Now, truth be told, I have experienced some people, like I have seen some people, and I think it's amazing, like expressing their culture that way. There was one day that I was going into Walmart, into the Walmart that's near Lewis Street, like right down the road from where the Tulsa Driller is. And a guy was going in, he had like, I'm assuming it's like him and his girlfriend, and he had like he had his hair like braided. I think he might have had feathers in his hair or something. And this guy like greeted him or whatever. And they exchanged like a greeting and things like that. I'm like, that's pretty cool. But it was just, he definitely had on like modern clothing, you know what I mean? And he was just expressing his culture in a certain way, like through his style. But oh my gosh, dang, like Tulsa King's got people thinking that everybody's out here. Like, I guess like everyone Native is wearing, like I said, like moccasins and leather suede pants and stuff and a headdress. And then everyone else, like there's these white guys with like Wranglers and a cowboy hat and a Western shirt or something is everyone else. And the little bit of Tulsa King that I watched, I did see, a degree of that. Like there's one scene where, and I think that was the first episode because I didn't get too far past the first episode, where Sylvester Stallone's character, he's walking through the airport and you see like a bunch of people passing him and they're like they're in costumes literally. And like, I don't know. I just, with all due respect, and I don't want anyone to take offense to this, we have to realize that like that's a TV show. And not even taking anything from my homeboy, I even in one of my videos said that Tulsa is kind of like Tulsa King, but I wasn't saying it in the sense of like the sort of liberties that they take with storytelling, that they want to say like, oh, this person is Native, so we're gonna have them like free, supposedly in the Tulsa airport, like walking around with this certain type of garb. And they showed like multiple characters walking around like that. And I don't know, it's just kind of frustrating, It's the same way, like I was watching a movie the other day, and it had absolutely nothing. Like, it was totally uncalled for. But this one character, like, he's having a conversation with this woman, and she's like, they're seniors, and she's like, oh, show me a picture of your grandkids. And he's an African American guy, and the grandkids, oh my God, it was so offensive. Like, they're dressed in like hip hop clothes, they got like chains on. Like, I'm like, who the fuck? And it's supposed to be like this upper class people. Why would his grandkids look like why would you even depict them that way? I said, if the Wayans brothers got a hold of that, that would have been a whole scene for them, because that was crazy. But you know, I guess we experience that in all cultures. Like, but that being said, I feel like in my personal experience so far with Oklahoma, I definitely experienced more people, I would say, embracing like the cowboy culture, the cowboy lifestyle. And I definitely miss that a whole lot. But in Southeast Texas, oh baby, it was a regular occurrence. Like, I might run in HEB just to grab something, and you see a guy there. Hold on. No, one time I did, it was one of my first, like early on when I actually like fully moved there. There's a guy in front of me in line. He has on boots. He got on some cowboy boots with spurs. I have no idea why. I don't think he rode a horse there, but you would definitely encounter that. You know what I mean? In the middle of Houston, they'll ride a horse. He had boots with spurs. He had on some basketball shorts, like a t-shirt. And I think he may have had, I don't know if he had a hat or not, but it was an ensemble, okay? And as country as my Texas friends say that Oklahoma is very much more like subdued and conservative in their style. And I have not seen not a single grill, not a single gold tooth since I've been here. And I miss that too. But there are some country ass people here in Tulsa. When I was house shopping, there was one neighborhood that we rode through, and boy, people had like chickens and geese in their yard and all kinds of things, you know, livestock situations going on. So it's different. You know, every state, every city, every location has its quirks, and it's cool. Something else I encountered while I was in Cuba, interacting with the group I was traveling with. Oklahoma came up in conversation, and someone says, isn't that where that lady was from? And I'm like, what lady? So apparently there's a movie called The Perfect Wife. They're like, oh yeah, you have to watch that movie. It's a really crazy story. I'm not even going to give any spoilers. I still need to watch it myself, but I'm definitely going to check that out. Yes, apparently it was like a big scandal that happened here in Tulsa a few years ago. So that is all for now. I definitely have more stories, like I said, or more crazy questions I've gotten about Oklahoma, but I don't want this video to be too long. So you guys, let me know, comment down below your crazy stories or crazy questions about Oklahoma, and let me know if you would like this to be an ongoing series. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. I love y'all. Peace.